Today on Locked On Red Wings, Cam Talbot stands on his head, and the PK goes 6-for-6 as Detroit beats the Chicago Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Odyssey, Spotify, YouTube. You guys have heard the spiel 1,000 times before if you've returned, so you already know, and you're probably already listening to us on one of those places. So there you have it. Scotty, we got a fun episode for the people today. The Red Wings bounced back after a pretty lifeless loss to Buffalo last night, or the night prior, I should say, with a pretty solid performance in Chicago and a couple things that really stood out as good. Now, there are things that stood out as not so good as well that we'll talk about. Kind of the flip side of the coin of what went well was what went wrong. And we'll talk about that here in segment one. We'll discuss our difference makers as always. Getting a lot of preseason for us has been a lot of nice live reps at doing game recaps. I do want to add, we're going to go into the regular season just a well-oiled machine. Segment two, we'll of course talk about any other notable performers or storylines from this hockey game. And then segment three, we'll talk about stuff, right? Couple of things on our docket that popped up between the last time we recorded and the start of this hockey game. So, Scotty, before we get to that, though, got to let the people know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, difference maker in this hockey game. We talked a little bit before we hopped on. I feel like there is two clear difference makers. Let me know if you feel differently, Scotty. What do you have?
Yeah, so I like the two that we discussed before we hit record here, because I think that ultimately they are probably the literal two biggest difference makers. So we can stick with those, but I do want to point out that I was very tempted to and it was kind of like a blanket statement. This is kind of cheating, but it's the preseason, so I don't feel bad about it. Was just saying that the difference in this game was kind of just two really good defensive plays that led to offense, right? And that's something that we've stressed a lot and that this team has stressed a lot so far in camp. So we'll talk about those, I'm sure, but I think pretty clearly the two literal difference makers, the number one and two biggest things that, were the difference in this hockey game between these two teams. I guess I'll take the penalty kill. You already mentioned it. 6-for-6 is pretty remarkable. Not sure there's too many games last season that you can point to that looked anything like that. This was one of the worst penalty kills I've literally ever seen in my life a year ago. And so for them to...
I think it was probably the worst penalty kill you've ever seen in your life, because they were trending to be historically the worst at one point.
Yeah, I'm trying to... They're definitely the worst Red Wings penalty kill comfortably I've ever seen in my life. That's not even really particularly close. Obviously, that's partially a victim of, having such great teams for the first 20 years of my life. But this is one of the worst kills ever. And last year it was. And so hopefully a game like this, a performance like this, you get, it wasn't just, they went 6-for-6. They went 6-for-6 and also had a lot of NHLers in the lineup in this card. So this was, I think that's a big win. And certainly, you win by 2 goals. You don't allow a single special teams goal and 6 opportunities for Chicago is obviously a big deal.
Yeah, I think they were talking about it on the broadcast because I was watching on ESPN Plus, the Chicago feed. It was the second best power play in the league last year. Their special teams was phenomenal for how dog water the team itself was. And they looked all of the second best power play in the NHL during this game. On every power play that they had, they were buzzing around the offensive zone. Passes were crisp, creating opportunities, and just the shots and opportunities that they had felt like at any given moment could have turned into a goal for them. And it felt like one of 3 things was going so well for Detroit on this penalty kill in today's game and was really reassuring to see. One was the positioning was very notable on this penalty kill in that a lot of the players kind of, they did the typical kind of keep the passes to the perimeter, don't let them have easy passing lanes through the center. But also when chances began to mount, the team did a really nice job of collapsing in front of Talbot, blocking shooting lanes like crazy. The Red Wings as a whole in this game had 21 blocked shots to Chicago's 9. They and late in the game too, when Chicago pulled their goalie, it was just block shot, block shot, block shot. And when a shot did get through, Cam Talbot, who's my difference maker in this hockey game, made huge saves. Cam Talbot rewound the clock in this hockey game. 38-year-old Cam Talbot did not look 38 years old. He was in top form in this game, making
some
incredible
of that
saves.
Games that count, eh?
Right, but it was really nice to see. This guy is going to be your 1B, and as you've already mentioned, this was a lot more of a dress rehearsal between these two teams than we've seen thus far. Obviously, Sider didn't play in this game. Edvinsson is still out, though going to be back very shortly. We'll talk about that in segment 3. You didn't have your second line with Casper Kane and DeBrincat because they played the night before, but you had most of your NHL guys, for the most part, in this game, and so did Chicago. And the Red Wings penalty kill, I liked what I saw. They had a couple of opportunities on the penalty kill themselves, right? You had Comfer had a chance on the 5th penalty kill where he had a little mini breakaway. Raymond had a 2-on-1 with Larkin on the 6th penalty kill. Berggren's the third Red Wings goal happens because Berggren comes out of the box. Albert Johansson got sprung out of the box at the end of the second period on a penalty kill. So there's a lot of good to see in terms of how they play defense at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill in this hockey game. But Cam Talbot himself had a goal saved above expected of 1.45, a save percentage of, was it 9.69, 9.64 in this hockey game, making 27 saves and 28 shot attempts, making blocker saves, making stick saves, coming across, robbing Bedard with his glove. He had a phenomenal game. So those two things combined, I mean, you can't have one without the other in this game and win 3-1. Both those things have to go right if you're going to win this type of hockey game 3-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know, we've talked about it ad nauseum throughout the summer, that the goaltending is going to be one of the biggest reasons why this team either takes that leap forward or sinks, right? It's not all on goaltending. It's not all on, what Gibson and Talbot do, but it's prevalent to a large part of that. It is certainly going to be a big factor in this team's success or failures this season. So,
right.
Yeah, great to see him have a performance like this. And the hope is that a guy like that, obviously in fewer games played, can maybe do that fairly often, right? That's the hope. It's okay, we're not going to have to rely on you for 2/3 of the season or whatever. So maybe you're only playing 30-ish games, 35 games. You can get that type of performance on a more consistent basis, a la, Jonathan Quick in New York.
Right. And I mean, I don't want to don't get too high, don't get too low.
Talbot's career, by the way, before someone accuses me of that.
You're comparing what Talbot or Quick has done in his old age with the Rangers as a 1B, which is, a fine comparison to make. Aging goaltender who is going to be using a backup role. I mean, Quick was considered washed when he went to the New York Rangers, too. He was not Jonathan Quick at that point, and he's really revitalized his career in a backup role, and that's kind of what you're hoping for Talbot to do in some capacity. Will we get that every night? Absolutely not. But what we saw tonight was an encouraging sign. Definitely. And there's a lot of encouraging signs in this game to be had, and we'll talk about a lot of that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings, so stay tuned. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization for your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, Scotty, segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We got a pretty heavy hand of players we want to talk about from this hockey game. Which one would you like to lead off with?
I want to start with Elmer, man, or Berggren, either one. Like, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, like these were rather two plays that ended up not being like, exactly identical, but were similar in nature, where you just had a really good defensive play that led to a change of possession, led to a poke check, whatever it was. And then you return the favor and go down ice and score a goal. So I think that those were kind of the two plays that are, stand out to me as, honestly, again, to like difference maker caliber rather plays in this game. So Berggren out of the penalty box immediately, really aggressive, applies pressure to the puck handler, and gets possession, goes down ice, and lets Raymond tip it in. And then obviously the Elmer play is just like that. Like, he's different, bro. Like that's something that is incredibly exciting, just because that is the type of intangible stuff that we have been talking about with him, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that he offers. You have the super long stick where he's able to poke it, get possession, bounce it off the boards, right? Like, all of this, and then go down. Like, everything is just fantastic, man. He's awesome. And that play was the epitome of what excites people about Elmer Soderblom.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I actually liked what Berggren did on his assist more than Soderblom's, because, and that doesn't mean I didn't like what Soderblom did. Like, that was great too. But we haven't seen Berggren. I don't think we've ever seen Berggren make a play like that at the NHL level. And Todd McClellan said literally yesterday morning before the game, after the morning practice, that in reference to a question about Jonathan Berggren, told a story about I guess it would be an anecdote technically, about a player he used to play with or he used to coach that played with Wayne Gretzky, and how it took the player a long time at the NHL level to learn that, not everyone is going to be an elite goal scorer at the NHL level, and you sometimes have to learn how to play a little bit differently. Then that night, Berggren goes out, doesn't really have a great game. Next night, he goes out, and he does that. And that's the kind of, yesterday we were hard on him and Comfer, who also scored in this hockey game, about how they've been kind of invisible throughout the preseason, and two guys who feel like there's a lot to prove with youth on their heels. Now, I think Comfer's position in the lineup's a lot more secure than Berggren's is, but for him to come out of the penalty box, forecheck on Reichel, strip him of possession, and then with one glove, protect the puck and out-muscle him to push it across to Raymond. We have not yet seen a goal like that or an assist like that in this from Jonathan Berggren.
Like that might be the most. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't want to get too out of myself. It's a preseason game, but that might be the most impressive start-to-finish play of Berggren's career at the NHL level.
And I mean, there might be stuff from a couple years ago when he played 67 games we're forgetting about, but like that was the most physical play I've seen Berggren make. The Soderblom one was also very impressive just because of whose pocket he picked. And that's like that was the second time of three that Bedard was like low-key embarrassed by a Detroit Red Wing in the two preseason games they played. There was a moment in the first game too, and I'm trying to remember it was Emmett Finney stripping him of the puck in the offensive zone that kicked off a play that resulted in a goal. Then he gets his pocket picked by Elmer Soderblom as he crosses the blue line. Then Soderblom makes that nifty play up the board, sets up JT Compher, who scores. Another player, again, we were hard on. Nice to see him get a goal, too. Todd McClellan's clearly, put a spark under a couple of these players after last night's performance. That was great to see from Soderblom, too, because that's another player that I thought's been kind of just lukewarm throughout the preseason here. So a lot of performances, a lot of moments from players who I was hoping to see more from in this preseason actually contribute in this hockey game. I'm trying to think who else here. I got. We have the Michael brandsegg-nygard.
Comfer as
Yeah, we referenced him a couple times. He scored that goal. It was a nice setup by Soderblom, and it was a nice rip by him past Spencer Knight. Other than that, I mean, it was just another fine game from him. I can't really. Oh, yeah. He did have a breakaway opportunity on the 5th penalty kill. He did have that, so I want to give him credit for that.
For sure. It's a guy that we're really hoping can get back to form, because I think that the depth production of this team changes dramatically if he can get back to what he was in year one as a wing. I guess in a similar breath, MBN, that goal he had was absolutely fantastic. As you mentioned before we hit record, great release. So yeah, great play, great setup that was Larkin. Yeah. On the power play. That was, fantastic and really cool to see, because we've heard so much about the two-way game, but that was on draft night, right? It was like, oh, he's, two-way player. He can be great defensively and offensively, whatever. But the one thing that was also in there was he's got a really underrated shot. And we've already seen that a couple of times now. I think that's his second goal of the preseason. So unless
it is his second goal.
Was it? Okay. I was wondering maybe if it was like red and white game or one of those games or whatever, but yeah, he's, we are seeing the, so proclaimed underrated shot in action, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So it was assisted by Larkin and Axel Sandin-Pellikka. It was for the record an even strength goal, not a power play goal. Red Wings had one power play they did not convert in this hockey game. But like that's important. Red Wings scored all 3 of their goals today at even strength, something that we desperately need to see. And I think another thing that goal provided us that we've seen a little bit in this preseason here is a clearer idea of what this team's identity is going to be. And we've talked about it a little bit before. I do think this Red Wings team is going to be heavily dependent on their forecheck. And in the defensive zone, I think they're going to be heavily dependent on like blocking, taking away shooting lanes, blocking shots. They're going to be an all gas, no breaks hockey team, which is something like I said, we've already discussed earlier in the preseason. But as preseason goes on and we're starting to see more and more of the NHL guys, it becomes more and more evident that that's going to be how this team's going to be built. And that's Todd McLellan building to the type of team that he has. He has a couple of really heavy players that are going to be good forecheckers. By the way, Mason Appleton stocks rising. I've really liked Mason Appleton's preseason. He had another really good game today, and he's got some really good skill guys. But where you lack is defense. So you can't build a team based on a conservative defensive mindset like Derek Lalonde wanted to do with the team's roster construction as it is. You got to be all gas, no breaks. And when your legs are tired, you beat them with skill. And so I feel like that goal, for example, like a lot of that had ASP was involved. Michael brandsegg-nygard's release, just as soon as he caught the puck, it was off his stick. It was an incredible shot. And what made that shot so incredible wasn't like just the speed. It wasn't just the velocity, but speed and velocity are the same thing. It was the fact that it was on net. The fact that we have a player who can get into the slot, release a one-timer like that, but actually get it on net is something we should not take for granted either, Scotty, because how many prospects over the last decade and a half have we had that had incredible shots? Martin Furk, Timu Pulkanen, that just could not find the net. MBN can hit the net, and that's going to result in a lot of goals if they find him open in the slot or from one of the dots. So that was really exciting. It was a great passing play. It resulted from that forechecking mentality that the Red Wings had.
Why can I not remember the name of the guy that was a part of the Cat trade?
Oh, Kubalik.
Dominic Kubalik, dude. Just absolutely grip it and rip it. Nowhere near the net.
He had a 20-goal season with the Red Wings. It was insane.
He did, because he was the only guy on his line that would shoot. He was the only guy on his line that would consistently, like when the puck was on his stick, actually just let it rip. I loved Kubalik. He had a lot of value down there.
He's not even in the NHL anymore, and he was a Calder Trophy finalist in his rookie season with the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah. It's insane.
It's crazy. I completely agree with you, though, and I think that that's obviously an important thing. I don't know, man. Like, this was, again, kind of a weird game. Like, you will gladly take the fact that I think the defense was pretty solid. And obviously, like you mentioned, all your goals came at even strength, which is a big deal. But they also didn't have, like, a high quantity of shots in the same breath. The power play, only one opportunity, whatever. But like the penalty kill does really well, right? You keep Chicago out like the center of the ice. You kind of push them to the outside, and then you had a great goaltending game. So there's a lot to like in this game, and it's yeah. I mean, it's against the Blackhawks in the preseason, but like we'll take it.
It was a fun game. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, compared to yesterday, where I was just like, this game needs to end. This preseason needs to end.
Sure.
Like, I actually had a lot of fun watching this hockey game because it was a high-paced hockey game with a lot of scoring chances exchanged. And you touched on it there. No, the Red Wings didn't have a ton of shot opportunities, but they did have 65% of the expected goals in this hockey game at 5-on-5.
There you go. Yeah.
It was the inverse of yesterday, where they had more shots, but they had nothing of quality. You look at the preseason heat map of the shot attempts in this hockey game.
This guy just wakes up every morning and he goes, I can't wait to look at a heat map today.
God, I love heat maps. You see, like, the Red Wings' chances were in the high slot.
Yeah,
a
look
lot
at the
more in this
Blackhawks
game.
one, though. That's almost the one you care more about here, right? There is nothing in front of the net or really like dense in the slot. I mean, that's all pushed far to the outside to the circle, even further, past
the only yellow blob they have near the goal is off to the right of, or I guess it would be off to the left of Talbot, and that's where
where the one goal was scored, right? So.
Absolute snipe, though. Absolute snipe. But you can see the Red Wings, yesterday was all by the blue line. This time it was in the high slot around the net. So
Sure.
much improved performance in the quality of the opportunities that they got in this hockey game. So definitely encouraging for the Red Wings. Scotty, we got to head to another break. There was one more thing about this game I wanted to touch on before we got to stuff. So we'll cover that real quick when we come back. Stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right. The last thing I wanted to bring up about this game was the kind of the lineup change we saw. On the fourth line, we saw, was it Amadeus Lombardi, Michael Rasmussen, and Jonathan Berggren. On the third line, we got JT Compher, Mason Appleton, and I have them up. I just want to make sure I got them. Elmer Soderblom. And on the top line, we've got Larkin, Raymond, and Kopp. And this was the first time that we've seen Kopp play in that top line left wing role, something that we talked a lot about in the preseason, or I should say in the offseason, as him being one of the best candidates for that role, but also losing him in the center faceoff dot would be a huge blow. So it was kind of that back and forth. And then early on in the preseason, he played so well on that matchup line that it kind of felt he was solidified in that role. But as Max pointed out, he's played so well in the preseason that he's almost earned the opportunity to audition for top line left wing. I thought he played pretty well on that line, I'm not going to lie, and the data tends to back it up. When that line was out there, Raymond Larkin, Kopp, they had a 70% expected goals for percentage and a Corsi for percentage of 78%. So they were definitely dominant line when they were out there. And again, maybe at a preseason game, but this was they weren't playing nobodies. Like, this was a Blackhawks team that was rolling out a lot of their NHL veterans tonight.
For sure. And, Kopp, as you mentioned, someone we talked about all summer as a player that had the potential maybe to fill that void. And I'm sure he will play like top line left wing at some point this season, right? Like, it's probably going to be some sort of a revolving door. I think the big thing with Kopp is, similar to Marco Kasper, to be honest, where it's just like you don't want to remove him if he is extremely valuable as, in Kopp's case, third line center. Like, you don't want to completely remove him from then, because then you have a hole just at 3C. So, I think that we'll probably see him there in some capacity, but I think he's more than earned the opportunity, or earned the right rather, to get top line minutes, especially in a preseason game. Why not?
Yeah, and the one thing too, Scotty, that I need to touch on that I teased the start of the episode, but then forgot to bring up as we continue to have a conversation, was the reason why having 6 penalty kills killed off is a bad thing. And that's because you took 6 penalties. The Red Wings were pretty undisciplined in this hockey game. So while it is awesome that they killed off 6 penalty kills from a team that was the second best power play in the league last year and was very dangerous all throughout this game on the power play, it's also a lot easier when you're not down a man for a combined, 12 minutes in a hockey game. So that was something I wanted to bring up. That discipline's a thing for sure, but I'm not overly concerned because they were also the least penalized team in the league last year. So it just definitely needed to be brought up.
For sure. No, I think that's super fair. It was like you said, like solid all around performance. We'll gladly take it. And you finally have a day off tomorrow. Golly, they don't play a preseason game tomorrow. That's a small miracle. You're back on the horse Thursday. But you wouldn't get 2 days off here. So
no way you're getting 2 days.
No, not. Are you kidding? Red Wings preseason is a grind. Okay, an absolute grind.
All right, Scotty, we have stuff to talk about on this episode. I think the biggest one was what Todd McClellan said about Nate Danielson earlier today. But after the practice, he said that Nate Danielson would have had an opportunity to make this hockey team if he had not gotten hurt, but he did lace him up. They don't have a timetable on his return yet, but he did skate at practice, and it's a good news, bad news. It's great to hear that he immediately skated in the next practice, even if he wasn't like fully involved in everything, despite the injury. But it's also a huge bummer to hear, especially for myself, a big Nate Danielson supporter, to hear that he would have had an actual opportunity to make this roster that was cut short due to injury. I still believe we'll see him at some point this season, but I just think that he'll probably now start in Grand Rapids because at minimum he'll need a tune-up, unless he's only out for like a couple practices. He didn't even miss a practice, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, I don't know.
I'm just disappointed, man.
I'm sure. Yeah, I get it, but like, he didn't say like he was going to make the team like 100%. He was on like, there's probably 40 guys that they're like, oh, I have an opportunity to make the team. I'm not sure that anything really changes here. I think there's still, even with those comments, like in my eyes at least, there was still a really good chance that he wasn't going to make the opening night roster. Obviously, this makes it pretty much zero, unless, again, like you said, he's back, by Thursday. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully he's healthy. That's just the most important thing, is just make sure he's healthy. And I'm sure we will see him at some point this season in the NHL for sure.
You don't understand, though. In my head, saying he had an opportunity to make the team means he would have made it. That's how my brain works.
Well, okay, Mister, he's like the 8th best player in the organization over there. Yeah,
13th. Okay. Other good news that came out of that media availability, though, is Simon Edvinsson will play either the last 2 or the final preseason game. So Todd McClellan did say that they'd get him some game action. So that's actually awesome news, because now he doesn't come into the season just cold. He's going to get a little bit of a tune-up, and that's great, too, because those are the dress rehearsal games. So he's going to get action in the best preseason action he could possibly get it in. So he's been practicing the last few days. I don't think we've mentioned it on the podcast, but he's been practicing the last few days as part of an extra pair as he's been getting his legs underneath him. But it's nice to see that he'll play at least on Saturday, if not Thursday and Saturday by the sounds of it. So it's great to get him back. Finally, maybe get a real look at what defensive pairings will look like. Will it be top pair? Will it be second pair? I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, probably both before the preseason ends. But yeah, I don't have too much else to add. I think it's a huge deal that his first games of this half of the calendar year are not going to be literally opening night or game 2 or whatever. The fact that he's going to get tuned up is a big deal. So
great. Yes, I 100% agree. The other good news that came out of that media availability was JVR is returning to the team on Wednesday, I believe it was, for practice after the successful birth of his twins, is what they were talking about on the broadcast. So congratulations to JVR. His life just got a lot more busy. So congratulations to the JVR family, and it's going to be great to have him back in the locker room. And another piece to the puzzle to try and figure out what this team's lineup is going to look like.
For sure.
And then finally, last thing we got for stuff is literally 30 seconds after we ended recording yesterday, after I said, man, I hope they keep the roster cuts until after Wednesday or for Wednesday so we have stuff to talk about on the off day, the Red Wings made roster cuts. It was just 2 players. It was Justice Christensen. They cut from his amateur tryout. And then the Red Wings also returned goaltender Rudy Guimond to the Moncton Wildcats of the QMJHL. Now, notably, losing Rudy Guimond was actually not that big of a deal because of the fact that he was already sent down to that team like a week ago. He has already made 2 starts with the Moncton Wildcats, so I don't know why they waited so long to officially announce that they cut him. But cut's not the right word, but, returned him to his organization. But nonetheless, 2 roster changes were made, and so it felt like a opportunity to bring that up because that's what we do here. I've lost Scotty. I don't know what happened. His laptop might have died. I believe he just texted me. Let's see. What did he say? He said, BRB unbelievable. His laptop just died. Scotty, don't worry about it. I'm going to finish this episode up because we are at the end of the show regardless. So we'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Off the episode, we'll talk about, we'll preview the following game as well, and we'll have something to bring to you guys season preview related. So if Scotty were here, he would say, we ball, and I'll finish up with same time, same place. It's your team every day.